So that one was never remounted on the lathe and never had a tenon cut on it. So I have had some people wondering how you get something like that back on the lathe centered up. And it's not usually a problem. I just use something as a friction drive and just pick a spot. Normally there'll be a stub or something in the middle that where when I was coring it out, the diameter got smaller than required to drive the core, and it split off. So that's what this stub is. And that's small enough you can eyeball a pretty good center on it. Anyway, you can look side to side on that and say, oh, that's about center. And then look at it side to side again and say that's about center. And make a little dimple. The thing is, the walls on this are like an inch or better, an inch or more thick. So if I'm off by, I think, even a quarter of an inch here, the walls are going to be thick enough for me to get it round again within the thickness of the walls. And this is Manitoba maple, or box elder if you prefer to call it that. One thing, when you're bringing a rough out back, whether it's a core or you don't want to mount it on, well, I'll use one of the other ones. I've already got that one mounted. This has probably gone oval as it dried. So if I mount it on a disc, the disc is only going to be making contact in a couple of places on the inside and probably not making contact out here. So if I put that on a disc that is fairly large diameter and then bring the tailstock up and start putting pressure in the middle, that's trying to wedge it. It's only making contact in two places, so that would be trying to wedge it open, and there would be some pretty good stresses possibly built up. If there's any hidden flaws that you can't see in there, it's possible that with tailstock pressure you could split the piece of wood, and that wouldn't be, and if that happened in the middle of turning, you really wouldn't want that. So you want to use a friction drive that's not a large percentage of the diameter. You want to have, you want to be the pressure of your friction chuck down in here, so it's not, doesn't have as much leverage. Alright, so now I've got that mounted. I have to cut a tenon on it so that I can turn it around and turn the inside of it. And when I'm coring an intermediate bowl like this that I'm not going to cut a tenon on, I leave the bottom about an inch thick so that I've got the material there to cut a tenon. And I'm going to make a tenon about that size to fit the number 3 jaws on my Talon chuck. And that's about the size I want. Use my diamond point scraper to square up the sides of the tenon and the shoulder where the jaws will seat. And that should be good. And I'll true up the outside. And I'll level the rim on this mounting. Okay, so now I know where the rim is and I know where the base is, so I can concentrate on making a pleasing curve to join those points. Now this is probably wider than the base will finish, but at this stage it's not a problem. I'll be turning it back around in this orientation again to take the tenon off. At that point I'll be able to make some refining cuts if I have some tear out or something that I want to try and clean up. So I don't necessarily have to get this to a finished surface on this mounting. However, when I'm turning the inside, I'm going to be referencing my wall thickness off of this surface. So I pretty much need to get it at least close to its final form, shape, at this stage, so that when I'm turning the inside, I can judge how thick my walls are. And I think that gouge is getting just a bit on the dull side. Or maybe it wasn't, because this one doesn't seem to be all that much better. And I know this one hasn't been used since it was last sharpened, so... Alright, that's... The curve is not... There are some slight bumps in the curve, but it's pretty close to what I'll want as a finish. So I'm going to say that that is fine for the outside at this stage. And I want to, I'll want to get rid of this nub. I'm using a 1/2 inch spindle gouge just to undercut it. Undercut the nub so it's a little easier to get off, and that's good. Alright, so I'll just use a chisel to chop that nub off. My first stroke, I'll have the chisel tilted up, so I'm not trying to cut right at the surface on the first chop. Then I can have a look at it and see whether it's splitting down in or splitting up away. That actually split fairly level, so... Alright, that's fine. That's not going to interfere with the chuck. That's the main goal there, that it's not going to interfere with the chuck. Now when I bring this back around, I am going to want to have a tail center, center point. So I've just cut that tenon. I know it's round right now, so I'll just scribe something didn't seem right there. I guess it's all those lines are pretty close to the same place. So I'll just make a dimple with the awl, and that'll be my center when I turn it back around to take the tenon off. And so now I can work on the inside of the bowl. I'm just going to change the angle on this a bit so I can all right. Yeah, that feels better. Now this is a fairly shallow open bowl. The walls are still 3/4 of an inch or more thick through here. On this sort of a form, I do like to leave a fairly wide rim, so I'll need to undercut to get my wall thickness down a bit. And before I get too carried away, I want to check how much bottom thickness I have there. And right now I've got, so, 1/2 inch or a little better. So I want to start cutting sort of in and then bring it around. And I still haven't quite cut everywhere. That area right there hasn't been cut yet, and the same over here, so I do need to take it somewhat narrower on the rim here. And that actually doesn't feel bad. The curve feels good. I don't have a lot of tear out. I have a pretty good surface there. So I think I'm going to say that's fine for the upper portion of the bowl. Now right now, this is my thinnest point. And that's, somewhere between 3/16 and 1/4 of an inch, I suppose, which is fine. But from there, it starts to get thicker. So I need to take some more out down in the bottom there. Okay, so right now, I haven't taken any more out of here since I said it was just over 1/2 an inch. So, at the bottom dead center, I haven't. That's still the same measurement as it was when I checked it before. So I want to take, probably another 3/16 or so, right at bottom dead center. So I'm going to be starting about here to get down to that thickness, because it is quite thick right here, right now. Like that's over 1/2 inch. So starting about there, I want to take some more material out of there for sure. Alright, I've got a ridge here where I was picking that cut up that I'll have to try and get rid of. And the bottom thickness is now it's still actually a little thicker than I would necessarily like. So right here there's a ridge I've got to try and clean up, and let me try that one. Alright, that's much better. So I'm going to say that that is ready for sandpaper on the inside. All right. Okay, so I just want to do a final check on the bottom thickness. And it's so probably between 1/4 and 5/16, which is fine. Okay, so that's the inside done. And I'll find a chuck. Okay, the main goal here is to get the tenon off and clean up the bottom. But I do have some minor tear out here, so I will be making a cut up the side to refine the surface, and I'll probably be making the base a little smaller in diameter. When I use my depth gauge there, when I'm looking down the outside, I'm looking at this surface right here. So that's my reference surface for how deep, for where the inside bottom is. I know that it's 1/4 of an inch or so on this side of that surface at bottom dead center. So as long as that surface, or at least some trace of that surface, is still there, then I still know what I have in terms of bottom thickness. So I won't be removing that surface completely until just before I'm ready to start sanding. Wow! Am I going forward? Okay. That gouge has not got any sort of an edge on it at all. I must have messed up when I was sharpening it, because I'm sure I haven't used it since I sharpened it last. Alright, now in this particular case, normally I would not touch this surface until just before I was ready to start sanding. In this particular case, I think I want to make the base a little narrower. So I may remove that surface. So just in case I do, I'm taking the tenon down level with that surface. So that so that surface is fairly level right now. So basically this whole surface now can be used as my reference surface, as long as I don't change it again. So now I want to hook up my vacuum. It's a very important step. And I'll turn the vacuum on. So now I'll make a cleanup pass on the outside here. I've got some chattered areas here from when I tried shear scraping with that 3/8 gouge with about 3 inches of tool overhang. And there are some small areas with some minor tear out. So I'm going to clean that up. Alright, so that's feels like a smooth curve. And it looks like I cleaned up the tear out. So the outside is done. So I'll take this nub off the bottom here. And let me check. And I actually do still have some of that pencil mark left, so I didn't completely remove that reference surface. And I am concave. So now I'll just make a light pass here to clean up that surface, and I'll continue it all the way to center so that I don't lose the concave surface there. Alright, so that's the outside ready for sanding. There is still a bit of that pencil there, but that'll sand off. Very quickly, I should think. Alright, I guess that's done. So thank you for watching.